everyone, and welcome to the first episode of No Excuses for 2019 with your show hosts, Fenurian.
And Volatil, and no Aristeel, because Aristeel has issues, because Comcast is having issues.
Yeah, he's got serious problems with his internet provider. I had a look at his the coverage map actually for Comcast, and there's big red blotches all over, particularly the eastern United States, but Atlanta and the surrounding areas have blotches kind of all over the place. Something's gone horribly, horribly wrong by the sound of it.
You say that, but I checked their network status, and they assure me that it's fine.
Yeah.
My experience has been, though, that telecommunications companies never...
Oh, no, they won't. They'll also never give you a straight answer if they can possibly help it. All right.
So, Aristeel may be along later if everything straightens out, but I wouldn't put money on it.
Yeah. He's also got issues with a family member who has been injured and refuses to admit it. So, it's going to be fun.
Well, I don't think there's any concealing that he's injured, but certainly doesn't seem to want to get it dealt with like a sane person.
Stixer.
So, if you would like to get involved with the show, it's the same deal as last year. You can send us email at excusesvtw@gmail.com, or you can follow us on the Twitter at noexcusesvtw, or you can join us in our Discord server, most easily vtwreproduction.com, and clicking on the show logo on any of our recent show posts, which will take you directly to Discord server where you can chat with the show host live, or you can post silly memes or talk about the news that we discuss on the show or whatever, and you can interact with us live during the show as well if you happen to be listening.
Yes, indeed. So go do it. Go do it now. Alright, on the stream today I'm playing a bit of RimWorld, but unlike last time I played it on the stream, this time I've got it modded up to the eyeballs. This is probably going to end extra badly. Well, okay, granted it's RimWorld, everything almost always ends badly in this game, but...
I don't actually remember which...
RimWorld, it's the colony survival game on a alien planet, where essentially you're dropped into the middle of nowhere and told, okay, here's your colonists, don't die. So you need to gather food and resources, and every now and again, the game's interactive storyteller will decide, no, I've had enough of your nonsense, you've had it far too easy for far too long, and do things like drop a group of radioactive squirrels on your face, just because it can.
I see.
This game is very vindictive, in case you haven't figured that one out before. Let me see, where shall I build? Just trying to find a good place to put a colony, which won't necessarily mean I'll die immediately. That'll do.
Well, I mean, it probably has the sort of influence of trying to work out where to place your first city in civilization, which doesn't... because it's always in the place. So, oh, great, I can see all the resources that I can't use.
Yes, that's the problem with starting civilization first, is you place your first city usually on maybe turn 1 or 2, and then once your visual range expands, all these nice handy resources, which you could have had if you just were patient and moved over one tile, are just beyond your reach.
Yeah, but not beyond your squat on it. You're allied with. You can't just without starting.
Yeah. Alright, so we've got some catching up to do.
Yes, we've been away for a few weeks now.
Yes.
Seems like a while, or at least a lot has happened.
A lot has happened.
Not for us.
Well, not
for the sorts of things that we would normally cover, it's been a helter-skelter of a month for a lot of companies out there.
Yeah. The stairs, they keep happening, bro.
Yeah. Told you about stairs, bro. Told you about stairs. Told you, dog.
Told you, dog. So, where to begin? I guess we'll start with our outbreaks. And we'll start actually with the obvious one. Any interesting Christmas presents?
I don't get Christmas.
Oh.
Nobody sends me.
Well,
you do, and Ari does, but then my brother does. But other than that, so I just got people just usually take the soft option with me, and they just whatever's on the top of my Steam wish list, which I don't actually have any problem with, other than the fact it makes my backlog bigger.
Yes. There was only so much Neptunia I could throw at you this year.
Well, I'm pretty sure that I own almost everything Neptunia. At this point.
Yeah, I think there's one or two you don't, but that's about it.
Yeah, but so I've got more Neptunia. I got more Neptunia from my brother as well at one point. I think Ari got me Trails of Cold Steel's first chapter, which one of the ones I'm looking forward to playing. I hear it's good, but just another JRPG for the list of JRPGs, which is very, very lengthy. Yes. I have very many of them and not a lot of time. So yeah. So I didn't get anything that I was like super eager to slap onto my computer and start playing straight away, but it's wearing down the list of things that I have on the wish list. What I will say is that I don't know what has been done stealthily in the background, but while I still ran aground several times, it was much easier this year to buy gifts for people.
Yes.
I had a number of false starts, but I actually got there in the end and it didn't take me all day. Like last time, I think that I got my account locked from purchasing things several times.
You did.
And eventually I gave up. But this time, it was like 3 false starts, and then it worked.
I actually got lucky and managed to get Ari's present on the first shot. Which I forget exactly what it was. It was some depressing JRPG type deal.
Well, there's not a lot of difference between the Australian and US dollars right now. So it's probably easier for you to make the requirements.
Mm-hmm. Until the voices in somebody's head changes everything again.
Yeah. Unfortunately, that's a thing.
Yeah.
I don't know why or what goal they hope to accomplish with these shenanigans. You
just
doing this sort of thing.
Just knock it off. Stop it.
I don't know. I think that they have changed something.
Yeah.
I don't think that this is just this time we got lucky. I think that they have something, and most likely that is complaints of revenue, which is what I would expect to happen given their decisions.
Yeah.
It's been really rough having my primary gift acquisition mechanism just disappear out from under me the last couple of years. So I'm glad that I can actually use it again.
Yes.
Yeah. So when I buy Christmas presents, I only buy either you get a video game, but if you don't play video games, you get booze. If you don't play video games or drink booze, well, you're out of luck because you're going to get one of them.
It's one or the other. That's it.
You're cutting out. I don't know if it's my internet or yours.
I'm not entirely certain. I think it might be yours.
It could be mine. Mine's been a bit spotty this morning. I don't really know why.
Yeah. Oh, well, we'll try and carry on because it was perfectly fine right up until we started the show.
Yes, it was. And I don't understand why that is. It's not fair.
Everything's running fine at my end, so I don't know what's going on. Anywho, I guess from my point of view, I only got a couple of presents this year because we decided we were going to try and save some money this year and go a bit light. I probably got one of the most ironic presents I've ever received, though, and that is a pop vinyl Fallout 76 lamp.
Was that gift delivered in sincerity or irony?
Sincerity, unfortunately, because it should have been delivered in irony. It's that perfect for it. They even left the price tag on it, actually, so There may have been a degree of irony in there. I haven't actually
take it back. Regift it to someone you hate.
No, I'm going to hang on to it just for the pure ironic value, I think, at this point. Some things are just too perfect and make me want to slightly cry a little bit.
Oh.
Bethesda, you ruined everything. Stop ruining everything.
Somebody's got to do it.
Yes, the game I most got run out of so far is Monster Hunter Generations X. Because it's a Monster Hunter game, and that means I'm just going to disappear into it for a couple of months.
Yeah. I've been thinking about investing a bit of time in Monster Hunter World.
Yeah.
I can sort of get positioned to not get wrecked by literally everything all the time it comes out. Because I never really made it very far through the end game, so my gear is pretty garbage.
Yep.
But so, I'm not really one for playing that game at huge solos.
Yeah. Well, you've got the crossover event with The Witcher coming up in a month. You've also got the ultra thick Great Jagras coming up, as Captain has been putting it.
Oh Lord, he coming!
Oh Lord, he coming! I really hope he is hard as hell.
They should just make him murderously fast and difficult. That's what I.
That would be awesome.
Is, after all, the greatest Jagras.
He is the greatest of all Jagras. So going back to old school Monster Hunter, has been interesting.
And probably good preparation for having to face the old school demons.
Oh my, yes.
New one, whatever it's called.
Yes, Nagakuga, Barioth, and Tigrex. Confirmed for the Monster Hunter World expansion. Them's nasty boys.
Yeah, I hear Tigrex was like wall numero uno for a lot of people for a lot of Monster Hunter's history.
Yeah. He's just nasty all the way through. A big ball of angry.
Who can hurt you by roaring.
Yes. He's fast, he hits like a truck, he hurts you by roaring, and he gives absolutely no cares about your well-being. Enjoy! Yes.
I'm rather looking forward to seeing how it goes. I don't have any real like expectations or apprehensions attached to a Monster Hunter expansion. Except for, the obligatory reservations about anything produced by Capcom.
Yeah.
I mean, Monster Hunter hasn't given me a huge amount of reason to be concerned in the past because they've done a very good job. But still Capcom, and they just have a way of finding methods of screwing things up, which should really be just, plain sailing.
Yeah. Just waiting for the day that they step in and ruin Monster Hunter, but thankfully that has not seemed to be today. Hopefully, maybe. Not gonna jinx it. So, yeah, Generations Hex. Essentially, Generations is a big mashup of every classic Monster Hunter game up until this point. So you've got reused maps and reused towns and all sorts of things all over the place, but it allows them to put a lot more content into the game, I guess. They have changed up a few of the maps, like the Monster Hunter World. Monster Hunter 3's initial map didn't have a campsite in it, or at least not in the place you'd expect it to be. It kind of had one off, kind of stuck in the back somewhere. But you could see the town from the map. You can't see that anymore because I'm presuming they decided to move the town because they were living on top of a giant sea beard. I'm not kidding, by the way.
Oh, what?
Yeah. That was the biggest bad of Monster Hunter 3 was, I forget what it's actually named, but it's a giant kind of whale thing with two big horns and a beard.
Like, what sort of beard are we talking here? Are we talking like Van Dyke or are we talking Guan Yu?
We're talking Ramu.
I see. So you could hide a goat in there with several goats.
Yeah, not Final Fantasy 14.
You could hide a Barioth in there.
You could actually. It was big enough. He is enormous. He was also underwater because that was Monster Hunter 3's big thing. Generations gimmick is fighting styles, hunter styles. So you've got your skilled style, which is what you're used to from previous games. And then you've got things like aerial, which allows you to kind of do a dodge roll into a monster, kick off them, and do a jumping attack for a mount. You've got adept, which allows you to perfectly time a dodge in order to do a big counterattack move, but it's hard as nails to actually pull off properly. And so on like that. But, yeah, there's been some fun things to run back into, you know, like loading screens.
Everybody
Loads of
loves loading.
screens.
Forever.
I would rather go back to World where you've got one loading screen and then that's it. You're in for good. Instead of lots of little loading screens.
If they had a way of, I don't know, resolving the loading screen issue, making the loading screens in World much, much faster, then that would be a near perfect. Because the pace breaking of those loading screens is pretty much the only significant large floor Monster Hunter.
It is.
It's one of the things that I think about when I try and decide whether to play it or not, and then decide no, is usually because I feel like, oh well, I'm going to have to go hunt a monster. If I'm farming it and I've gotten relatively good at the farming route that I'm doing on that monster, that means that I'm spending almost as much time loading as I am killing.
Yep.
And that's really not a nice feeling.
No. So thankfully, well, I kind of got used to the old school Monster Hunter with loading screens every couple of minutes. Like every time you went to move between one part of a map and another, there's a loading screen. Which also is really annoying if a monster decided it was going to punch you over a zone border. Or on the very rare occasion, it would drop dead on the other side of the zone transition. I've done that a couple of times, and it makes you cry. It really does. Like, there's this monster there. You want to carve it, but you can't.
Oh, that's cruel. Why would they allow that?
So, yeah, don't play bowgun, kiddies.
I've been meaning to try it.
Or poison damage, actually.
I haven't tried any of.
Yeah.
Not in the slightest. Like it might be fun in the process of if I decide to get prepared for the expansion to just pick up a new weapon from scratch like the bowgun. See what.
I've tried
proceed. Yes.
Yeah, I've tried a bit of heavy bowgun, and it took some getting used to. But going from old school Monster Hunter into World, the bowgun's got a massive overhaul. So there's really no comparison. Especially the light bowgun.
Good overhaul or a bad overhaul?
Good overhaul. Thankfully, very good overhaul. What else? So, I've been picking away at it. I haven't gotten as far as I'd like because and the other part of coming back to the old game is here comes more grind again. A lot of the first couple of tiers is go and hunt, 12 Jaggies or something like that, which is effortless and boring. Or go and get mushrooms because everyone likes the mushroom quests.
Need to collect berries.
Yeah, that's another thing I'm glad they did in World is cut down on that sort of thing.
Yeah, I thought that there was going to be a lot of that initially because when World starts out, they send you on a couple of those kind of missions.
Yeah, but it's only
and then they just abruptly stop.
Yeah. Unlike the old school where you had quests specifically to go fishing. World did not have any fishing quests.
Almost no fishing.
No. World, you can cheat with fishing by walking out to a fishing hole and just throwing your net into it. You don't get the same quantity of goods that you would actually by fishing properly, but you get it done in a lot shorter time. What else? All these other little quality of life changes I got used to in in World are just not there anymore, and I really miss them. Things like being able to actually change your gear and restock your supplies at a camp, or fast travel. Can't do that. Or even the tracking bugs. Because Monster Hunter, classically, you had a paintball item, which you had to find a monster and hit it with this paintball, which would then mark it on your map for a limited amount of time. So if a monster decided it was going to, swim under a lake and make you run 5 zones in order to catch up with it, yeah. World, you can just fast travel and then follow the bugs. Done. But even after all that, I will still say it's still a good time. I'm having a lot of fun with it. Oh no, I hope Paul hasn't cut out. Is there?
No, I'm still here.
Oh, good.
I'm still here. I didn't play old school Monster Hunter, so I can't really say anything comparative about the way things are done in World versus anything else.
Yeah. One of the best things I can really praise World for is it is the best way to get new people into the Monster Hunter franchise. You can just pick it up and have a good time with it. There's no grind, there's no learning. Well, there is a bit of a learning curve, but it's relatively forgiving. Unlike old Monster Hunter games.
I'm hoping that World will be an ongoing thread of the franchise and not just, a one-off plus expansions, because I don't really fancy having to buy another Soul Hunter game reach the end of its lifespan. And I think that what they did in World I liked, and most of what I hear about old school Monster Hunter does not make me want to prefer that.
No. Yeah, there's a lot of faults with old school Monster Hunter, but it is still good fun. Even if the Monster Hunter, the drop rates for certain parts are abysmal. I'm looking at you, Nibblesnarf. I want to dress up as Doom Guy, damn it.
I find that name incredibly amusing for some reason.
It is. It's even fun to say he's Nibblesnarf.
Does he know he's got a ridiculous name?
I don't think he cares. I think he's just going to eat you.
Did they say anything about how many monsters are likely to be in the new expansion?
Nothing concrete. They've said it's going to be on par with previous Monster Hunter expansions, which usually means because it's Capcom going from a base version to the ultimate version, and they usually add, about 20-ish monsters in those. So I think that's the working number people are going with. It's just 20-ish.
Because I think some of the ones in Monster Hunter World I wasn't particularly impressed with. I think the worst offender is Lavazion. Like, that's not even. That's just it's got one gimmick, and it basically either it renders Duratodus irrelevant or Duratodus renders irrelevant. There's not room in the game for both of those monsters. They're too similar.
I wouldn't be surprised if we see Plesioth, which come up in the expansion, which renders them both irrelevant. With its, galactic range hit checks.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. But, I found that those monsters almost stood out for being banal.
Yeah.
Like they have almost no character whatsoever. They're just sort of annoying.
Yeah. They're just kind of there. There's no real ceremony or hype around them. But you're gonna get monsters like that every now and again. Like, nobody actually cares about the Genprey or the Gearprey line.
I also feel like Dodogama got a raw deal.
I gotta feel sorry for Dodogama.
I feel like it would have been better if we got to see more of that dude. But his gear is mostly trash and completely. By the time you've got the ability to go and kill him, like, he doesn't drop.
He drops nothing of worth, no.
He's sort of a low tier monster in a part of the game where you have a vested interest in only killing high tier monsters.
Yep.
But he's got personality. He's got personality and much more than a lot of his contemporaries. Like, he's more interesting than Lavazioth, that's for sure.
He is the butt monkey, is what he is.
But he should have been someone that you see with the sort of frequency that you see.
Yeah.
And like have gear that is relevant. Like Uragan's gear can be relevant.
Yeah. Yeah. His gear is just kind of blah. I think you may need maybe fire resist bits off it, but that's about it.
I've never seen a set that involves any substantial amount of Dodogama gear. Poor little Homsar.
Poor little Homsar. I'm actually surprised because then you go back into old school, or Generation 4 anyway, and you get Tetsukaba, who is essentially Dodogama. Except red.
Huh.
And more frog-like. And also more bulldozer-like.
Frog-like bulldozer Dodogama.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's kind of his thing. He's a frog cross a bulldozer. Because, why not? Anyway, that's enough banging on about Monster Hunter. It's good. Monster Hunter is great. Which is very surprising considering it's Capcom.
Yeah, I didn't stop playing because I got sick of it either. That's something it's very rarely that I get to do that. Like normally, if I stop playing a game, with very few exceptions, it's because I've played killing me.
Yeah.
Even if I feel obliged to, like in World of Warcraft, it's like logging in is killing.
Yeah.
There are three reasons that I stopped playing game. Number one, the reason I stopped playing Final Fantasy 14, I don't have the. Mm-hmm. Number two, the reason I stopped playing World of Warcraft, and this is the most common one, and that's like just logging in makes me feel queasy. Yes. I don't want to play anymore. I've done that. I've sung that song. I've danced that. The third and rare category is just, oh well, there's so much other stuff coming out that I feel like I need to stop playing so that I can do some other stuff, but I kind of wish that I could just clone myself and play both.
Yeah.
Like that's Monster Hunter.
Yeah. I think I kind of reached a good point with Monster Hunter World where it's because of, okay, I've had my fun with this, time to move on.
I would still be playing Monster Hunter if there were people clamoring to play with me. Unfortunately, I'm not that good.
Yeah. Like, I'd happily jump in if someone said, hey, you want to come play with some Monster Hunter? Good times, good times. And that's probably about all we're going to talk about in terms of good games this week, by the way. Oh boy. Oh boy, oh boy. Anywho, as far as anime goes, any interesting anime? There were some nice surprises over the break, like we got that bonus episode of Cells at Work come up.
Mm-hmm.
I got caught up on Black Clover because they put out maybe one episode of it during the break. And I sat down and watched most of the Phoenix Wright anime, or Ace Attorney, because I hate myself, I guess.
Yeah, well, we all occasionally engage in behaviour like that, and I talk about mine as well when it gets to my week.
Yeah. Like, it's not... Oh dear, I've just had a colonist who seems to have had some sort of brain hemorrhage and just keeled over. He is officially clinically brain dead. Rightio.
Well, that's
RimWorld.
Positive.
That's RimWorld.
Kind of grim.
Oh, and my weasel got attacked.
Wait, what?
I know, right? It's a ferret. Okay, pet ferret got attacked by bush turkeys or quails. Right. So yeah, RimWorld. Where was I? Anime. So yeah, the Phoenix Wright anime. It's not offensively bad, and it hits all the major notes of the initial trilogy. Doesn't take too many liberties with the characters. Not that there's really a whole lot they needed to change with any of them. So yeah,
they were porting the games PlayStation, right? Or was it PC? I don't even remember. I remember they were porting them somewhere, and I felt vaguely positive about it because it meant they would play.
They ported them to phone and mobiles.
No, they were porting
Oh, poor
them
team.
to a new platform, and I don't remember which one it was.
PS4, I want to say.
So I heard that it was an asinine cost on pretty much every platform.
Oh yeah, but that's Capcom.
Why they got to do?
Yeah.
I guess they got to squeeze whatever money they can out of the games that they make that are actually good.
Yep. What else did I watch? I went through Skullface Bookfella Honda-kun because, I don't know, someone recommended it to me. It was
What?
okay. Yeah. It's basically the tales of a guy who works at a bookstore. And he's just retelling a few stories from his time working at this bookstore.
I see.
With a very strange stylistic choice where a lot of the staff and important characters have masks on, and they're just called by whatever their mask is. Except for Honda, who has a skull.
Because
he's a skull-faced bookseller.
he's not merely skull-faced. He doesn't have flesh anywhere else either.
No, he doesn't. He is a skeleton because reasons. And every now and again you get some corporate character who shows up and they've just got their job title on a piece of paper stuck to their face.
Sounds true to life.
Yeah, sounds about right. They've got about much personality. So it's worth a couple of laughs and a couple of disturbingly familiar cringy moments. As anyone who's worked in that sort of environment, the retail environment, is going to find something they're familiar with in there. Such as corporate overlord incompetence.
I get plenty of corporate overlord incompetence. Or it's not even just incompetence, it's sort of like complete disconnect from the real world. But
there is a point when incompetence becomes deliberate. So yeah, I recommend that one as well. It's just a good light bit of content fluff. I'm going to leave my weeks at that, I think. We've got plenty more to talk about in this show. Because the game industry just had to go and stick its face into the wood chipper, didn't it?
Stuck its finger in the electric.
Oh, yes.
Don't really know why. They did. Guess it was inevitable.
It was happening.
What have I been doing? I spent my Christmas loafing around.
Loafing is good.
Loafing around, and basically, I don't regret any of it. I got to get my loaf on, and it was worthwhile.
Maximum loaf.
So, FGO. The first chapter is complete. The first arc is complete. The Solomon Singularity brought with it a massive raid. There were multiple millions of copies of each of the demon pillars that we had to kill as a server. Racing the end of the year, because as the plot goes, humanity is exterminated at the very end of 2018. So yeah, we were coming down to the wire a bit there, but we got there in the end.
Yeah.
Killed all the demon pillars, took on the final boss, read him his rights, put him in the ground. Many feels were felt. And it did have a very... They did manage to produce both a sense of urgency and a sense of camaraderie amongst the people participating. Like it was a good time with everybody working towards their objectives. We got to get our grand final revenge on Lev for what he did to Olga.
Him and his horrible sideburns.
I don't know if they're sideburns or what. I mean, he looks like a cocker spaniel.
He does a bit, doesn't he?
Yeah, he's weirdo. But yeah, so an interesting lore tidbit for anybody interested, and I don't think there is anybody interested, is that the reason why the FGO is they're the beta universe for the NASAverse. They are the second most important universe, and the major distinction between the FGO universe and the primary Type Moon universe is Lev. Actually, Fundamentally, it all revolves around him, who seems like an important bit character. But in every there are actually three types of universe, roughly speaking, that orbit around the events of FGO. Number one is the primary universe, which is basically Makeri Zolgan falls in love with Justitia von Einsburn, and they create the Grail system for the Heavensphere Wars. And as such, Makeri Zolgan never becomes a demon pillar because he's obsessively focused on something else.
Mm-hmm.
The second type of world is the FGO universe, where Zolgan fulfills his duties as a demon pillar and never helps the Ironsburns produce the Grail War. So I think only one Fuyuki Grail War even takes place in the FGO setting because the Ironsburns have to put it together themselves without help.
Right.
And in that setting, Lev goes on to become a demon pillar, Flauros, and basically betrays the Kaldea organization and kicks off the events of FGO. The other universe, and this is what the bulk number of them that don't have a Fuyuki Grail War, revolves around Lev, because in every other universe that there is no Fuyuki Grail War and no events of FGO, Lev commits suicide. So
Right.
he's actually, it turns out that the vast bulk of Levs that exist across the parallel universe are all uncommonly decent people for Magi. And in every one of those plots, Lev discovers that he's destined to become a traitorous demon pillar and then arranges to have friends help him commit suicide.
Right.
He can't self-terminate because demon pillars are forbidden from doing so, but he basically, in every other timeline, he arranges a way to commit suicide.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I thought that was kind of interesting that he's actually not a bastard most of the time. It's just that in that one timeline, he was unsuccessful, killing himself, and fully became the demon pillar. But yeah, at any rate, so that the event was great. Everything came to an end for the first chapter. We're now in sort of a lull period before kicking off Epic of Remnant, which is the chapter 1.5, which will take most of this year and maybe a little bit of next year.
Okay.
That all of the sort of, I'm not quite sure of the core story, but it seems like sort of like the debris left over from the events of the first arc, it manifests in a whole bunch of abnormalities or something. Like, that's sort of the loose impression I have. I have studiously avoided any spoilers, so I have no idea. Other than the names of the servants involved, I have no idea.
Yeah. It's not too big a deal to just say, yeah, X-Servant will be coming along, because that's more, you got to save up your gotcha food.
Yeah. Everybody got to save their gotcha food. It's referred to as, North America server refers to it as their clairvoyant skill.
Yes.
But, so, North America server, successful kills on the demon pillars. There was a little bit of help. Based on people's data modeling, it looked like there was a little bit of help coming in from the server operators to make sure that we didn't fall too far behind. Not so much for Korea.
They didn't need that help.
No, the opposite. Korea imploded.
Oh.
Because when Babylonia Singularity came out, the company operating FGO, because the company operating FGO in everywhere but North America and Japan is not overseen by Delightworks.
Right.
Like, while it's a different company that runs North America FGO, they run it in collaboration with Delightworks, who make the original.
Mm-hmm.
So they're overseen properly. The Korean one, when Babylonia came out, they stealth nerfed the gacha rates on the Babylonia banner.
Oh.
And because Koreans are obsessives, they were keeping all of the data of the pull rates in their community, and they realized that the rates had been lowered. And they did this by comparing it to other rates that had been on other banners and on the Japanese version of the Babylonia banner. And the reason they compared to the Japanese version of the Babylonia banner was because the Japanese also kept all their data, but also because the company that came out when they were accused of lowering the gacha rates and said, yes, we did lower the gacha rates, but we only did exactly what Japan did. And the
No.
Japanese people provided the data showing that no, the gacha rates for the Babylonian banner were exactly the same as every other banner. So basically,
Fibber.
the Korean player base nutted up, put their money where their mouth was, and mass quit or transferred to other servers. They were willing to abandon all of their progress, all of their investment, and re-roll on other servers or quit entirely, rather than allow the people running FGO Korea to pull this. And
nice.
Nobody aside from the people operating FGO in Korea knew just how serious they had taken this until the raid event for Solomon came out, and no demon pillars were dying. Their rate, in the time that North America had killed all but the last demon pillar, Korea had killed 1.5.
Wow.
That was all. And they are much more hardcore than the North American players on average when they are, playing full bore. So in the end, the Korean server had to have the server snap its fingers and kill all the demon pillars because there was nobody farming them. There's nobody bringing them down. So, and the thing is, it's not just a chore killing these things. These things have the highest drop rates for rare materials of anything in the game.
Yes.
While this event is running. So you really want to be in there getting those items while the getting's good, and nobody was killing them. So good on the Korean player base for sticking to their principle. Yeah. The gacha may screw us all, but there is a limit to how much we are willing to allow ourselves to be screwed.
So I'd love to see more of that happen in the West.
Come the end of the Merlin banner, I was pulling with whatever I could scrape up right to the last minute, including from like extra quartz from quests, extra quartz from dailies, extra quartz from bond levels, and it came right down to the wire, and I got my New Year's tickets, and I started throwing them, and it got Merlin at the last minute, having done about 170 pulls. I got Merlin in the end. The sad thing being I didn't really want Merlin that much, but I talked to my brother about it, and he said, if you don't get it, you'll regret it, because his usefulness as a convenience to get through the really rough parts in the story quests is just too hot. Yeah. So, yeah, in the end I decided to knuckle down and get him, but yeah, it was rough. And in the process, I did pull Heracles, which is good, because Heracles is decent.
Yes.
But I also pulled over the break. I pulled Frankenstein, who's the worst.
Who's terrible.
The worst berserker. The worst 4-star berserker. I pulled Dion, who is the worst 4-star saber.
Yeah.
And I pulled 2 copies of Stheno. Not 1, but 2 copies of Stheno. The worst 4-star assassin.
Good grief.
The gacha was really twisting the knife there.
I didn't get any 5-star servants. I got a really, really good 5-star craft essence, but what did I get? I got 2 banana dojis, because Ibaraki is actually a really good berserker. And I got Kiritsugu Assassin. So that's something.
I would have been happy. If I probably wouldn't have even bothered to follow through on trying to get Merlin if I had gotten other cool stuff in the meantime, but it was dry. It was not good for me. It was not good for me for a while there.
The gacha feeds on your tears.
I went through at least one evening of gacha depression.
Yeah.
I rolled on the GSSR as well for the new year, and I got exactly what I wanted, which was John Dark. So I was happy with that. I haven't actually used her for anything yet, because there's not any content available right now that needs her. So she's on the bench for now, level 90, but on the bench. Yeah, and I'm currently working on trying to get Merlin's skills up, which means I'm page farming.
Yeah, the pages that just don't exist.
Pages have been my bottleneck since I started playing. The entire time is all.
Yeah.
Tamamo needed a pile of pages, and now
I really need to get grinding. I need to level up
Having
Ozymandias, but I can't because I haven't gotten to Camelot yet.
Really, you haven't finished America? I thought you'd.
I'm about
America.
halfway through America. Yeah, I need to sit down and
Camelot's
finish it.
really good. It's like I enjoy it.
Honestly, I'm not
Very-
finding the American story particularly engaging.
Well,
Partly
it's
because
not,
of
really.
it's really not, and a good part of that is Geronimo.
Yeah.
Also, the Thought Queen.
Yeah, it's not. It picks up pace a little bit at the end when you start to realize that that the game starts to really confront you with the reality of your situation, and that it's not just because up until that point it's like that all of them are like quests in an MMO essentially. Like you get sent out on an adventure and you do your adventure and you're never really in danger of losing. But Solomon starts to show like his actual level of power at the end of the American Singularity,
Right.
and you get Deus Ex Machina out of it, but it's the everything up to the end of America is just setting the scene for Camelot and Babylonia, and Camelot and Babylonia are both really, really great, really.
So I just got to get through this slog of very apologetic faced terrible caster.
Well, it's like most of the American Singularity is just sort of like light entertainment focused.
Yeah.
And it's sort of like the last bastion of easygoingness before things get really serious, because the stakes are while the stakes have always been high, the stakes are high in an obvious in your face fashion for the next two Singularities. So
yep,
there's a reason why Babylonia and Camelot are the most beloved season ones that have gotten the go ahead to do adapt.
Incidentally, they did put out that new trailer for the Babylonia movie, and it looks great. They didn't show much, but it just looks great.
Camelot's the movie.
Oh, sorry, yes.
But yeah, they don't show you very much.
It doesn't show you much, but it's just like, here, have some pure hype.
Yeah, they know what they're doing. Everybody who plays FGO is already going to go watch that.
Oh yeah.
I hope that I get the opportunity to see Camelot in the cinema. I probably won't, but it would be nice if. Failing that, though, I've got a VR headset which can relatively well.
Yeah, so you can go to the cinema without the burden of other people.
Yeah. And when it's a nerd movie, it's often a little bit, which is
yeah. There's always that little voice at the back of your mind saying, "This is a nerd movie. What are you doing?"
Yeah. Anyway,
Yeah.
So that's FGO. I had good luck on the gacha to start the year. Ari also had good luck to start the gacha for the year, but of course so did Abo. Abo got Musashi in one ticket, and then he messaged me saying that he's worried that he may have accidentally sold a piece of his soul. Yeah, Fern didn't have great, but I think that
mediocre luck.
I think you had good luck, but
yeah.
To be fair, I didn't have great luck. I just brute forced it, but yeah. I've got a project to work on in game, since I've got a troll of a wizard to raise, and
yes,
the more I've thought about it, I think that the next once I'm satisfied with the progress of Jean, I will probably give Punch Saint another 5 rolls because she's just been an incredible team DPS anchor. Like, when all else fails, it has always been the case that Martha didn't fail, and she stood up and punched the enemy to death.
She's very good at that. Oh dear.
This just happens every time. Everything else has fallen apart. I have made a poor strategic decision. I took the wrong servants or whatever. Martha comes in from the back line and just turn over turn, pounds the crap out of the opponent until it's moving.
Ah, right. Oh dear. Ringworld seems to have just crashed.
Great. We're still recording though, right?
Oh yeah.
Still broadcasting. Everything's still fine.
Everything's fine. Just the game I was playing on the stream decided it didn't want to play anymore.
Well, anyway, So that's Geo. What animes did I watch? I finished off most of the ones on the last stream. Merc Storia was surprisingly good, and I don't really even understand why, since it seemed really kind of not especially remarkable at first, but you know, the series of several self-contained stories that are quite simple but well told. Despite being unimpressive along most parameters, I felt like the whole series came together quite well and was, you know, relatively heartwarming in the end. It all came together quite well. I didn't expect it to. I expected it to peter out, but no, it was sort of like consistent and solid all the way through. What else? Goblin Slayer ended. I think it ended on a good note. It was very popular. I liked what they did with it because they could have taken it a lot of ways. The different adaptations have taken it in many different ways. Some of them more sensationalist than others. It got off to a really sensationalist start.
Yes.
But when it came right down to it, it still ended up being a very classic sort of story. It was a little bit conventional in places, but it was still exciting in the conventional way. And I think that it taps into something in the psyche of the male viewer that is sort of like underserved a little bit with all of the isekai power fantasies and so on and so forth that have stepped in to fill the gap, and that it's not quite like an isekai. It's not quite like a shonen. It's just like these things, these enemies. There's no edginess. There's no subversion. Every single one of these things is morally bad and deserves to die, and you're going to go and do it with pure muscle. Like all of these things, like you can kill these things and feel good about it because they deserve it. like it's that sort of macho male power fantasy.
It's like
every
Nazis.
single one of like it's a series about using your aggression for the right purpose, because you can't possibly go wrong killing a goblin. So I kind of appreciate it. It's like it very much does resonate with me. Serathus's fond comparisons to the Doom guy, in the sense that, you know, demons are bad.
Yeah, they're demons.
It doesn't matter how you kill Doom's demons; they all deserve to die, and you're going to do it.
Yes,
as many times as necessary.
Yes,
and it's that sort of thing, because a lot of series these days they spend a lot trying more subversive, or to make things more edgy, or to give extra depth to things that might not deserve it. Because the reality is these guys are bad and we're going to kill them. And I liked that because the show does it with gusto.
It does.
Okay, so there was the next bit of Persona 5 the animation came out, and chronicles the chapter on the ship.
Ah, yes. Hopefully without so much clopping around hallways.
Yeah, they shortcut a lot of that. They show you, you know, the brief clips needed, but they really edit it quite well. Gets the really important stuff gets put in place. I feel like they do a good job. And they might even slightly, due to them mainly because of the medium, I feel like they slightly outdo the game in one or two places, particularly with the turnaround at the end of the episode, where they think that it's over. They think that, oh well, we've dethroned the bad guy, everybody should be happy now, and then everybody around turns around and demands their king anyway.
Yeah.
And I feel like that scene is done relatively well, and due to the limitations of the medium, the game, it did do it well, but it didn't do it as well as it could have been done. The first episode for the new year, the first episode of Lord Elmaloy II's Case Files,
yes,
aired, and I enjoyed it.
I loved it.
I was going to.
Yeah, you were always
But,
going to.
But yeah,
I think it just gleefully dances along this line between silly and serious.
yeah, which is pretty much Waver's character. Like he is a serious person, and he really wants to be taken seriously, but he's still kind of a goofball nerd when it comes down to it.
Yeah.
And there's not really, you can't really take the goofball nerd out of a person, no matter how high up they rise.
Yeah. Dear. So that one was just a good, fun watch.
Yeah, it was a solid self-contained pilot. I think it did really well. Rhinus is one of my favorite of the very minor side characters in the lore because of her, completely unrepentantly Machiavellian approach to managing her stepbrother, her proclaimed stepbrother in Waver, and that she's just absolutely unrepentant.
Yes.
in the way she treats him, but doesn't actually treat him badly per se. Just like she has a right to do what she wants.
Yeah,
and like I feel like in the undefined future of the franchise, which we'll never get, I think the odds are better than even that she'll con Waver into marrying her eventually.
Yeah,
because that just seems to be what's being set up.
Poor Waver.
Like he's going to get dragged into a political marriage with the head of the El Malloy family, and neither of them are going to be totally unhappy about it, but they're both going to pretend like.
Yeah.
That's the undefined end point of that plot arc, I think.
Yeah. I don't know. He just seems to get caught up in the wake of incredibly overbearing people a lot.
Yeah. That's his lot in life, I think. In case you don't know, there's actually a side story to Fate Zero that it was never really adapted in any form that we would see it, I don't think. I don't know if there was an OVA for it or anything like that, but during his time in the Fourth Grail War, Waver actually runs into Tiger.
Oh no.
And Iskander does his level best to try and set them up with each other.
Oh no.
I mean, it doesn't wash on this because but that's what came to mind when you said that Waver tends to get dragged along by overbearing people.
I do like Tiger, but she is a bit of a fruitcake.
Yeah.
But
child.
Even when he pops up in FGO, he's still kind of just along for the ride half the time.
Yeah.
He tries to steer things, but it doesn't really work.
Whether I don't know whether you're aware, Fern, but Tiger has as a pseudo servant that appears in Babylonia as well.
Oh, good grief!
Is pretty much just as absurd, if not slightly more so, than her usual appearance. But yeah, it's it was a good pilot, and I'm interested in watching the series. But my opinion is unreliable because I was going to like it regardless.
Glorious
overlook all of its flaws. But yeah, it's very it's got a very somber pace to a lot of it, as well as the usual sort of whiplash wacky humor that. But it seems to be focusing pretty heavily on the environment that is the Clock Tower, what it is to be a Magus in the Clock Tower, which is very different to most of the sort of open warfare style content that is normally what plays the Fate franchise.
Yep. Because
it's more political mechanic investigation. Is there anything else worth talking about? I watched the first episode of The Rising of the Shield Hero. Now, this is a stock isekai in concept, but there are two things that stand out about this. Number one, the lead character, gets brought to an alternate world as one of 4 heroes brought from alternate, and he is the only one that's brought over who has no knowledge of how the world operates, because for all of the other heroes brought from other parallel Japans, they had all played an MMO which had the same rules.
Right.
He hadn't, so he doesn't know what's going on. Plus, he got brought over as the shield hero, as opposed to the bow hero, the sword hero, and the spear hero, the other three. And he's the shield hero is notorious, it seems, in that world for being useless and basically a waste of everybody's time, and everybody reviles him. And he basically, through various plot events in the pilot, he gets screwed over severely.
Sounds like he's just the drummer in the band.
He starts at the bottom of the world. Like, things could not get worse for him. The only thing he has in his favor is that he is nominally the shield hero, and therefore he has the shield. Which is useless as a weapon, because the shield.
It's
so
just
grinding,
the shield.
Very difficult. So, yeah, he's nominally a hero, and that's the only thing he has going for him, because basically in the course of the first episode, and this is spoilers for the first, it is sort of tone setting episode, but basically he's the shield hero. So when the kingdom rounds up, because the four heroes can't work together because the weapons conflict with each other, they don't grow properly if trying to work together. So the kingdom rounds up adventurers to party up with them so they can go and train for their duties, which is basically their job as the four heroes to stop an invasion that periodically come in waves, but they have to grind their skills in the meantime to be prepared for each new wave of increasing difficulty.
Right.
So a standard gamified concept. Of course, he's the shield hero, so nobody wants to. And and eventually the king says, "Look, he is one of the four heroes. We need somebody to help him. Is there anybody who's willing to change team?" And one of the pretty girl character puts her hand up and says that she would be. And so they go off and they have a little introductory adventure thing. And then when he buys equipment for her and equipment for him, and they retire afterwards in the inn for the night. And when he wakes up, all of his stuff is gone. The guards are there and they arrest him, and she's accused him of raping her. And that's the highest crime in the kingdom. And the only reason they don't execute him on the spot is because he's the shield hero, has a sort of a privileged status in that they need him in order to fulfill a prophecy. But they basically kick him out with only the shield on his in the shield and nothing else.
Bit of an inversion of your regular isekai story, at least.
Yeah, so he starts at the bottom of the world to the top of it.
Yeah.
Now, the reason why I comment on this is that the critical commentariat imploded.
Of course I did.
They said that there's no such thing as a false rape accusation, and this show is basically spreading rape apologist propaganda.
Of course they did.
Almost none of them gave it a proper review. We're talking like 1s and 2s out of 5 across the board, all on the one plot. That they said no, this is portraying rape victims as liars. Therefore, the show is bad and needs to be banned. Sort of. Like, this is where we are now. Like, and never mind that false rape accusations nearly sunk the career of the new Supreme Court justice in
among
the United
others.
States. In the most publicized Supreme Court appointment in history, every single one of his accusers has found to either have zero evidence and be suggesting an impossible scenario, or has outright admitted to having told lies. And I think some of them have had to go to court over.
Yeah.
But no, we're still going to claim there's no such thing as a false rape accusation, because women always tell the truth.
Got to keep pushing that narrative.
Yeah, and they have, in all of the ones that I've heard about, I don't involve myself too deep in the online anime community because it's unbelievably cancerous. But
yes,
from what reports I've heard is that most of the usual talking heads have rated this entirely on their reaction to that. Everything else gets thrown out the window. But I'm all for ragging on isekai, but at least rag on them for a good reason.
Yeah.
Not because you feel personally offended by the plot.
Yeah.
I mean, there are tons and tons of series whose plot personally offends me.
Just it's bad.
I don't let that get in the way of my appraisal of its other element.
Yeah.
I mean, the number one fantasy trope is the church is evil.
Yes.
And I'm a traditionalist Catholic, so it's offensive to me that the church is always evil. Like, fundamentally evil in most of its depictions. But that doesn't affect my reviews of it, and it usually doesn't affect my enjoyment of it unless it's egregious in some way.
Hmm.
But yeah, that I felt was a pretty catastrophic failure in a quarter of journalism that is already the worst quarter of journalism that is not video games journalism.
Yes,
So,
the second worst.
I don't think there's anything else that I actively want to comment on other than I'm continuing to watch the new season of Sword Art Online.
Good grief, why?
Becoming more Sword Art Online with every episode. That's what I would say.
That's what I think a lot of people realise is they watch that first episode because of, hey, this is great, it's not Sword Art Online-y. And then the second episode hit, and it's now slightly more Sword Art Online.
Yeah, it's been getting progressively more Sword Art Online. The only novelty is that I'm pretty sure that the sort of there's sort of a backup administrator based on the Cardinal Code AI who he runs into, who's basically sealed herself in the library because the fake administrator who copied the other part of the card take over the universe, such as it is,
right,
is gunning for her head, without bothering to go into too much explanation. But the reason why I mention this is that I'm pretty sure that she shares a voice actor with Nero and constantly tacks Umu onto her sentences. So it's kind of disconcerting watching it.
Genuinely just random Umus.
Well, not random, but uses them everywhere that Nero would.
Oh dear. She may have got no characters mixed up.
Yeah, well, I'll probably watch it through to the end because I love to hate Sword Art Online. And speaking of loving to hate, while it was on sale in the Steam sale, I bought the first of Sword Art Online games.
I saw that, and I was wondering, what on earth are you doing?
Somebody actually said as much to me. Fine. Somebody sent me a message on Steam, which is something that I don't know if it's ever actually happened before. Not on the chat, but on the message thing. Basically asking me what I thought I was doing because it's appalling.
Yes.
Who was it? I can't remember now, and I don't even know how to look up those messages because that's just exactly how often I run into a reason to use the Steam. This is why Steam is so far behind Discord, because nobody understands how to use the community.
Yeah.
At any rate, someone actually said to me, it's Tom Bad Guy. He sent me a message that says, "No, dude, this game effing sucks." And I replied, "I actually already knew that. SAO was one of the franchises I involved myself in, largely so that I could go on hating it with ever increasing net." So, I got that, I downloaded it, and I played it, and boy, it's not very good. But
to what degree of bad is it?
I don't know what it was like originally, because this is their rehash of it to try and file off some of the rough edges.
Oh dear.
Now, it's not great by any stretch of the imagination, but one of the things that is really bad about it is also one of the things that is really successful, and that's not that it's sorted out. So, but what it unfortunately replicates is the feeling of getting dropped into an MMO at a high level with no clue how the game systems work.
Oh, okay.
Because it is unbelievably complicated. But beneath the surface, there is a huge amount of fiddling about you can do. It's very confusing. I haven't even spent any skill points because I'm not even sure how. Yeah, it's very odd. So the plot basically is that there's some kind of glitch goes wrong and it interferes with the duel that Kirito has with the bad guy, what's his name, at the end.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of Sword Art Online Ironclad's chapter. And rather than them having a climactic duel and resulting in the defeat of the bad and the end of freed, the duel goes and glitches out, and Kirito manages to strike a killing blow in conventional fashion without having to do any kind of Deus Ex Machina bullcrap. Because this glitch interferes, he strikes a killing blow, but instead of everybody getting released, the boss just disappears, nobody ever hears from him again, and the game continues. Except that everybody who advanced to the next floor, the 76th floor, can't go back. And everything's bugged out, basically. So they are continuing to advance to the 100th floor for lack of anything better to do.
Yeah.
And there's a whole bunch of other stuff that seems to be going wrong, mysterious things, mysterious new areas. So that's the rough gist of it. But the idea is, though, that you're starting as Kirito at the status that he was at when he cleared the 75th floor. So
Right.
you while one of the effects of the glitch is that you lose a bunch of skills when you advance from 75th floor to 60th floor, that destroys your progress. Some things go wrong. It doesn't completely dial you back or anything. So you still are like level 100 Kirito with a pile of skills that you don't understand, and a pile of game systems that you don't understand, and a bunch of equipment that you don't understand, and all of this stuff. And the game really doesn't bother to explain very much of anything at all. So it's very confusing. I'm not sure how much time I'll put into it because it's very confusing. But yeah, they also, for no adequately explored reason, they bring Leafa and Shinon.
Just because
they appear as a product of bug that they've been pulled in.
Right.
Obviously the reason is they have them for fan service purposes.
Mm-hmm.
Since, while I don't think anybody really likes Leafa, virtually everybody prefers Shinon as a female protagonist.
Yep.
I think that the biggest straight up mark against this game, other than being Sword Art Online, is that they make it worse somehow.
How? It's pretty bad to begin with.
She does. I haven't played very far.
Right.
Because I got caught up in being lost and farting around with the game system, failing to understand them. But they basically turn her into an engine for insecurity about Kirito.
Oh no!
Like all she does is worry about Kirito and complain about how Kirito's not taking care of himself, and worrying about Kirito constantly, and being jealous of Kirito and Kirito doing things, and the whole her character devolves straight away from a cold start into just being an extension of Kirito.
Oh dear.
With no personality of her own.
That doesn't
like she is
summarize
the
just
poster
about every
child.
female around him.
Well, the reason people like Shinon is that Shinon basically, while it's heavily implied that she's got a bit of a crush on Kirito, she basically thinks of him as kind of a dweeb.
Yep.
Who is sort of like incompetent at everything that he's not a prodigy at. I think that's why people like her so much more. Because while she's obliged to be attracted to Kirito because she's, female protagonist,
yes.
she actually can stand. Because she made a name for herself completely any of Kirito. Yeah. But they've devolved Asuna into like a caricature of a poorly written female. From what I
instead of just being a badly written female character, she's now a caricature of one.
If you wanted to provide Anita Sarkeesian with an example of a really badly done female character that she could use as an example of, this is the way every female character in every game is for her propaganda purposes, this would be the ideal character. Because she's just light eye candy with no personality to. I was sort of impressed. Anyway.
That is impressively bad, yes.
Okay, so what I spent most of my time doing, gaming-wise, was finishing off Berseria. And I finished off Berseria. And I was so glad to be done by the combat system is so bad. In fact, by the time I got to the end of that game, I had developed a great deal of acrimony for pretty much all of the game systems.
Yeah.
They were really sloppy. It was like a crappy, incomplete version of the ways that I've seen them manifest in other Tales games.
Mhm.
The equipment upgrading system was so awkward that I eventually stopped using it. Like none of my final equipment had any upgrades on it. I just brute forced it because it was just awful. You just have to constantly farm up junk items, upgrade those junk items, and then break up the junk items for higher level crafting materials so you could upgrade other junk items, and then break those down for better crafting materials, and then so on and so forth in this vicious cycle.
It's an endless cycle of junk.
It was it's stupid.
Yeah.
The title system is also stupid. It's way worse than the one in Graces, which was way better. The combat system is awkward and revolves almost entirely around negative status, which is a pain in the neck.
Mm-hmm.
Lots and lots of things about it really annoyed me on the mechanical side. Character writing was incredible. Like, it was just great from start to finish. The game is saved by its writing. Because the writing is good, that's what gets you to press on so that you can see what happens next. Because the gameplay does not. The game, I felt like, and I could be wrong about this because I possibly played too much of it at a stretch or something. Because not everybody is like Ari who wants to, dump 40 hours in a row into a game so you can finish in one sitting. But I could be wrong about this, but I felt like probably the back third especially, but the back half in general of the game devolved into just incredibly lengthy linear dungeon crawls. Like, you would just walk into a room and you would kill all the things, and you'd walk into a room and kill all, and it would ask you to do this depending on how thorough you are with exploring everything and killing everything. It would ask you to do this for like 2 or 3 hours at a stretch at times.
Yeah.
Well, I know that I play games slower than many people, and I do tend to poke in all the corners, but it really dragged after a while. My goodness. The final dungeon was also awful. Like, just full of teleporter puzzles and awkward bull crap.
Can we just stop with the teleporter puzzles already?
I didn't get all the stuff in it. I got tired.
Mm-hmm.
Really. Couldn't. I just pushed on. The final boss was interesting. You could be strategic. I just hit the button over and over again and went, explosion, 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 until it died, because that turned out to work relatively well. And of course, you've got to finish everything in Mega.
Oh, yeah.
Best way to go. But yeah, so generally, the game is an apocalypse of failure in terms of the system. And I don't understand why, since Tales has experienced so many different systems in the past. It seems incomprehensible that they could screw up so badly when they've got so much experience picking and choosing different features. They could have just assembled something that worked.
Mm-hmm.
The story is a mix. The writing is good on average, and it does draw you to the end of the story. The character writing is excellent. The plot writing is really... It's got the same problem as a lot of famous stories, in that it wears its pants on its head. And I don't mean that in the stupid way. I mean that it inverts a lot of the things that it's not really supposed to. It's very strange. Like, the examples that I would give were building up to this. The shallowest example is The Matrix, where The Matrix, the plot is basically the Matrix is not real, and that the real world, as is shown to us, is real, and it's better to be in the real world than in the Matrix because you are freer in the real world, right? That's the core premise. Yet in the Matrix, all of the allegories for the real world refer to the real world as Wonderland.
Mm-hmm.
As in Alice in Wonderland, all of their metaphors in that, they refer to the real world as Wonderland, which is back, obviously, because the real world is not the fantasy.
Yes.
It's not the warm fuzzy fantasy; it's the cold hard reality. But they've got all of the metaphors backward. Another example is the Star Wars, where you've got the dark side, the Empire of the Dark Side. Generally, they're aligned with the dark. The dark side is all about chaos and passions and letting your feelings run amok and do things, right?
Yep.
But the Empire is presented as oppressive because it's overly regimented, overly orderly, and unfeeling.
Yep.
Which is completely backward. It doesn't make any sense. I feel like Berseria had the same sort of problem in a lot. Everything seemed to be very, very weirdly like they're focusing constantly on themes of what's important is freedom and so on and so forth. I can't remember where I was going. I worked it all out ahead of time and now I've forgotten about half of it. But yeah, the overarching theme seems to be about you need to be freedom. It's better to be free and to have to face all of the dangers of reality than to have to have humanity, bled dry of all feeling and become this sort of static, stagnant race where they don't have anything good happen and they don't have anything bad happen. Everything is basically neutral forever and what. And that's where they wind up, but it doesn't really mesh with how they present the Abbey at the start. I'll probably come back to this a little bit because I didn't maybe next week or something because I worked all of this out ahead of time, but there's a pretty sharp inversion that takes place in the portrayals where they end up switching places. The themes as presented don't match up at the end the way they do at the beginning. It's like they lost their way and they ended up becoming focused on a different theme partway through. Yeah, I can't remember exactly what I had worked out now. I should have written it down while I was thinking about it. Yeah. I did think about it at quite a bit of length, but there are some overarching thematic problems with the way the story was that in the end don't really make a lot of sense. It's like they accuse they treat a lot of things as oppressive, which are not. They're not actually a form of oppression relative to what they end up, what the bad guys end up doing at the end, but they object to it all the way along as if it was always the same thing. But yeah, I'll have to think about it a bit more and try and recapture what I was thinking, because it bothered me at the end that after I got all the way through, it was like, well, yes, I did this, but that's not what I was fighting originally. the sort of the one man's quest to remove all suffering from the world. That's not a new trope, but I understand where it was coming from, and all parts of the overarching story make sense self-contained, but when assembled all together, they don't quite make sense at all. So I'll come back to that when I've rethought what I. But yeah, it did seem a bit off, and as a result, I felt that the plot writing sagged a bit in places because things ended up conflicting with each other. But the character writing, as far as the individual character, was all very, very good. And it in this particular story, that really does take the center stage. So I think that it was all quite well. Story-wise, easily the best Tales game I've played. Mechanics-wise, easily the worst.
Yeah.
That's what it boils down to. Did I play any other games worth talking about? No, I think they ate up a lot of time. I think that it is unlikely that I'll do a New Game Plus of that one because the game was so onerous to play so many times.
Yeah.
Even though I enjoyed the story, the mechanics made it a chore. By the end of it, it was just work.
Yeah, maybe if you feel like the need to go back through it, just let's play it or something.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if I go through on New Games Plus, maybe it'll just power me up enough that I can hammer everything so hard that it doesn't matter. But yeah, I couldn't do another playthrough from a cold start because I know the amount of grind that's ahead of me if I started fresh character. So yeah, no, I think
Thank you.
it's sort of disappointing in a way that it's let down so severely by its mechanic, because the story is really, even if I've read some of the various thematic, but I don't regret spending time and money on it. It was worthwhile because the story. But I'm more likely to do another Persona 5 playthrough.
Yes.
To do another Berseria.
Right.
I think I'll leave it there.
All right. This is probably a good time to take a break.
Mm-hmm.
So let us do that, and then we will come back with the absolute circus that the game industry had evolved into over the last couple of weeks. Oh boy. All right. Back in a few minutes. we're back. So, stuff happened this last few weeks.
Yeah, been a rough week for some people, I'm sure.
It's been an absolute dumpster fire for others. Oh boy, oh boy. All right. So we've got a fair bit to get through, and we don't have any emails this week. So where shall we begin?
Well, I guess Blizzard.
Start with
Since
Blizzard.
they have the conga line of shame and failure to deal with. So Blizzard is basically trying to destroy themselves, as far as I can tell. Everything they have done is wrong and bad and terrible, and everything that is happening to them is wrong and terrible.
And terrible and awful.
They cannot catch a break, and it's their own fault.
Yeah.
So, these what feels like the triggering event for all of the Diablo Immortal reveal at BlizzCon, because everything since then has just been downhill and further downhill.
Yes.
Like week after week after week. So from that initial completely tone deaf failure to address their fans in any competent fashion, Activision Blizzard has just gone from strength to strength in the most ironic way possible.
Yeah.
So
all right.
starting at that point, their share prices have been tumbling, and every time another one of these things happen, it takes a hit. So
they're down at about 50% of what they were at before BlizzCon at this point.
Of the latest batch of failure, I think that the biggest the latest batch of failures, I think that the first of the new ones in the conga line was probably they lost the chief financial officer of Activision.
Yes,
was fired. Now, that they fired the chief financial officer of Activision would not by itself be an indicator of a terrible thing. However, the reason that they fired him was that he was shopping around for another job, even though he knew it was against the rules. It was against his contract.
Yes.
Because where's his here?
Incidentally, he did find that other job.
Yeah, Spencer Newman basically was looking around for other work, and he landed a job as presumably as a CFO at Netflix. And this was him already having a cushy job with Blizzard, and he's decided at that time to break his contract, to go look for another job, take on another, without going through the usual process. That sort of thing suggests to me that he either didn't care, or he had some reason that he needed to leave so fast that he didn't need to worry about procedure.
Yes.
So, given that over the past 3 or 4 weeks, we'll say over the past 60 days, carefully, there have been lots and lots of movement in the games industry of like C-tier chief financial, chief executive officer who are selling up stock options in their company.
Yeah.
And taking the money and running. This has been happening a lot. And so it does make you wonder why everybody is doing that. What do they know? What can they see from that inside position at the chief level? What do they know that makes them want to be doing this? That shuffling around, leaving their jobs, selling up their stock options. And this guy who got fired is just not even the latest. This was a couple of weeks ago. Spencer Newman. So he's gone. What was the next thing to happen? Trying to remember order of these, because there's so many of them.
There's so many of them.
I think maybe the next one was I think a week later or so. The Blizzard chief financial officer resigned from her job.
Yes.
A job that she's had less than a year.
Yes.
So she's come in, she's done a whole bunch of cost-cutting measures, and has bailed. and she's taken up. I think she's taken up a job at Square.
Yeah, not Square Enix, just Square, a different company.
I think they do mobile. I don't remember. But
something like that.
At any rate, yeah, she's taken another job as chief financial officer at another business. It has, like, the term, the phrase "rats from a sinking ship" starts to come to mind.
Yes, it does.
Okay, so another delicious debacle. The already beleaguered Overwatch Pro scene, because honestly, the Overwatch Pro scene has been suffering. Not many people watch it, or rather, a decreasing number of people are watching it. Probably because Overwatch meddles with its balance so much that a lot of the really serious players and fans just don't want to try and make a career in that, because you never know if your skills are going to be transferable tomorrow, because they may just destroy your character. So there was a guy who, well, the story as it was originally presented was that a esports team in the Overwatch League had signed a new female player called Ellie, who was, supposedly great and all. And unfortunately for Ellie was the only pro player who didn't have her real name listed in the record.
Yes.
And lots of people doubted that she was real. That somebody else is playing for her. She's not a real girl gamer. All of the stuff that the media likes to say gamers say.
Soggy knees.
So all of the media outlets they jumped off the blocks to immediately start writing these think pieces about how gamers are just doubting her because they don't want to accept that there's such a thing as a good female gamer, and they're calling her identity into question because they can't handle the fact the girl plays games, etc., etc. All the usual boilerplate coming up. When of course the actual reason was that she was the only pro player who wouldn't reveal her identity.
It's down to raise a few flags when it's part of a standard procedure that a pro player will disclose their identity and contact details and things like that to the league. So when somebody doesn't, it definitely raises a few red flags.
But let's not worry about doing, investigative journalism when can just write a puff piece for the greatness of this girl gamer who we don't know anything about, obviously.
Yes.
So very shortly afterwards, it turned out that Ellie was actually the Smurf account for another pro gamer. Or he's not. It was a high-end gamer on the league who was not a pro gamer.
Yes.
And he had done this as a social experiment. When I think he might have originally logged on to that account by accident or something. I can't remember. But he ended up getting signed to an esports team when he was unable to get signed to an esports team on his own merits.
More the point,
on his normal account.
Yeah, on his normal account, he did audition for this esports team and got rejected. It's the same esports team that accepted him when he was supposedly female.
But all he needed to do was claim a female identity, have a female handle, and have a woman come and talk on stream for him while pretending to play, and he was able to get signed in a trice.
Yep.
Because diversity. Now, the funny part is that this all came out, and he readily admitted it after all of these journalistic outlets had written their hit pieces on the gaming community for doubting the sacred female gamer. And I think that nearly all of them doubled down.
Yes.
After it was shown that, that she was actually not really female. She was a male gamer who used being female to get signed to a team he couldn't get signed to as a male.
Yeah. A handful of them just deleted the pieces they wrote immediately out of hand and denied the whole thing. But, the usual ones, Polygon and Kotaku, they all doubled down. Because of course they did.
Right. So this is Overwatch's new variety of cancer for the week.
Yep.
A few days after that, Overwatch having gone through a whole bunch of negative press, they decided to arbitrarily come out and with a minuscule snippet of lore in order to declare Soldier 76 as gay.
Yeah.
explicitly, oh, he's gay, and this is the story about his boyfriend and stuff. Like, it's just, my goodness, really?
Yeah, that
really?
was already...
Every time you go through a controversy, you end up declaring another one of your characters as gay just so that you can get out of it.
Yeah, like there was already a lot of fan speculation, and by fan speculation I mean, you know, fan fiction, putting him in that position, but
let's be real. This is the internet.
yeah,
there is no character that doesn't exist.
exactly.
None. Except allegedly Torbjorn. That's what people say. No, he is as straight as they come.
The guy drinks molten metal. I mean, you can't get more manly than that. But honestly,
yeah.
Let's face it, as far as, you know, the gamers go, nobody cares.
Yeah, it shouldn't, but because nobody cares, it just makes bringing it up more conspicuous.
Yes.
Like, what exactly are you trying to do with Soldier 76, the stock Call of Duty guy cutout, who's just supposed to be Call of Duty guy?
Are you making fun of Call of Duty players?
You're suddenly making his sexuality a plot point when it has no bearing on anything. I don't know about no, I don't understand. I think LGBT is not a community starter.
No, it's not.
That is the people that talk about the LGBT community are people who are of a collectivist bent. They are not people who, you know, actually have those concerns by and large. If in the second place, if I did fall into one of those categories, heaven forbid, I would be deeply, deeply offended at this sort of tokenism.
Oh yeah.
It's like, oh yeah, if I was a shallow enough person to use my sexuality as the entirety of my identity, to then have that identity used as a shield for somebody's PR, that would be really, really upsetting.
Oh yeah, I know a few people who do fit into that category, and yeah, they all hate it. To say they hate it actually is horribly understating it. They detest it. They loathe it. They just want to be treated like everyone else, and they can't be.
Yeah, you know the way that they normally accomplish that in real life, they don't throw it in everybody's face all the time.
Mm.
Unlike Blizzard, who seems to be hell-bent on throwing it in everybody's face when it has even less bearing on a video game character than it does on practically anything else in the world. So,
Yep.
so yeah, this it's like the most transparent pandering imaginable. It's like, oh, the Overwatch PR is bad right now because we had a debacle where it turns out that being female is all that you need in order to get signed onto an esports team for it. We better make sure that we pump up our progressive cred a little bit. Let's find a character that doesn't have any details on his sexuality because it really shouldn't in a video game like this, and give him some. That's ridiculous, but you know, that's Blizzard in a nutshell. So, a couple days after that,
yes,
Blizzard being sued. An employee has filed a federal lawsuit against Blizzard. Why? Racism.
Racism.
Apparently, their internal culture is not very good. Despite the fact that they have, you know, tried to demonstrate their wokeitude by declaring Soldier 76 gay, turns out that in their actual internal environment is rife with racism.
Yeah.
One particular employee, probably oversensitive. He sounds a little bit oversensitive, but
a little bit.
He basically testifies that he was the punching bag for his team. He was a Mexican, and he was constantly the butt of, you know, racial jokes, racial slurs, constantly talking about how, oh, he's a sexist because all Mexicans are sexist, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
He took it to his team leaders. They said that he was oversensitive and he should just give up and ignore it, and so on and so forth. He became he developed more anxiety about it, more stress. Eventually he left, and nobody seems to know why, but now he's filing this lawsuit. It's apparently their internal culture is bigger. Big surprise.
Yeah.
Seems to happen to all of these people who are incredibly woke.
They can't clean up their own mess.
Well, it's like I've often said that people who talk about how woke they are and talk about racism and sexism all the time, they're like the person who calls somebody out for making a double entendre, and then it becomes evident that in calling them out, he was the only person who realized that there was a double entendre, therefore proving that he has the filthiest mind in the room.
Yeah,
that's it. When you see racism everywhere, it's usually because you think in race. That's all there is to it.
yeah,
Simple as that. It's like how they adjusted the skin color for Emir Alter in FGO for the promo material for Epic of Remnant to make it lighter because it was blackface, apparently. The only way you come to that conclusion is if when you see a black man, you think of an insulting racial stereotype. What does that say about you? You should think a bit more carefully before you level accusations of racism, in my opinion.
Yes.
So, because that wasn't nearly enough, a couple of days later, Mike Morhaime has announced that rather than staying on as and continuing to stay on in an advisory role, because if you recall, last year he stepped down from his position as the head honcho of Blizzard to take up an advisory role instead.
Yes.
And now he's just decided that, no, you know what? I'm just leaving.
I'm done.
He's had enough. He doesn't want. We don't know the circumstances. We can't really make any reasonable speculation, but it's just another thing. Mike Morhaime is, in a lot of ways, the last of the heart and soul of Blizzard. He was one of the co-founders. He's been there the whole time. He's been the steward for a lot of their major projects. Now he's leaving. And what's left of Blizzard? Who even knows?
Yeah. So, yeah, I believe his original contract was, 6 months in an advisory role. So, I'm guessing something must have happened to drive him out for just that short term.
At any rate, so that's not nearly enough. So,
oh no, there's more.
Next day rolls around. The rooster crows. The announcement goes out. Bungie is leaving Activision and taking the rights to Destiny with them.
There is cheering. There is champagne.
Yeah, they
partying in the office.
from the people on the inside, apparently Bungie had just had it up to the back teeth with Activision. Destiny was their baby. It was all that they had left after Halo was taken from them. So the sort of trials and tribulations which it has gone through have probably taken their toll on creatives there. And while most of the problems with, say, Destiny 2 have been Bungie's decisions, making those decisions in that situation where you're clamped in the Activision annualized publication vice, is not conducive to making good game design decisions.
No.
It's conducive to making decisions that will meet your deadlines and bottom line requirements and so on. This is not actually a way to be successful. It's just a way to meet your boss. So, in a very, very rare and dramatic move, they have left with the rights to the IP with them. And Activision, given the fact that Activision is in corporate hell right now with everything going south for them, they were probably almost equally happy to be able to pare down their catalogue so they've got one less property to worry about.
Yeah, normally when this sort of thing happens, a studio will leave, but they will leave with nothing. Absolutely
but
nothing.
In this case, they've taken Destiny with them. They must have made some arrangement when they entered into the partnership to begin with to permit this to actually happen.
Yeah.
But I guess it's just one less thing for their investors to complain about, because their investors were deeply, deeply dissatisfied with Destiny's performance.
Yeah. Destiny had some problems with the new expansion, let's just say.
Mind you, to be fair, they were deeply, deeply disappointed with the latest Call of Duty's performance as well, because it only made $500 million.
Yeah.
Which is the same amount that the last Call of Duty made. And since it's not higher, they consider the new Call of Duty to be a failure commercially.
Yes.
But this is the type of thinking that isn't right. And this is the problem. This is why we're headed for another game. Because everything is based on precisely how much money can we get out of this. This is the only thing that matters.
Yeah. Doesn't mean not about making a good game anymore. It's about getting every red cent out of the player base that you can.
So, and all of these things have all been PR kryptonite for Blizzard Activision, and they all happened within the span of 2 or 3 weeks. Like this is a PR apocalypse.
Yes, it is.
And the investment in these big companies reflects these. So, yeah, they're in trouble. They're going to need to find a solution, or they're going to basically disappear. I mean, as far as most people are concerned, old Blizzard is dead.
Oh yeah.
I don't think there's anybody who genuinely thinks that anything of what people have classically thought of as Blizzard is still extant. I don't think anybody.
Well, no. Look, over the last few weeks, they've killed Heroes of the Storm. Overwatch is stagnating.
Stagnating is generous.
Yes, stagnating is very generous.
It's blatantly declining.
Yep. They're putting out questionnaires asking whether or not people even care about Hearthstone anymore.
Which they don't, since three of the main Hearthstone developers have left to form their own studio. So
yes,
the same creative force is not behind it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So
you've got Diablo. Well, what has not been said about Diablo already at this point? Good grief! How do they think that was a good idea?
Yeah, the only thing that we even know they are making is Diablo 4. And we only know that in terms of, oh, well, people are reporting that.
Yeah.
Like, we don't, in a sense, we don't actually know that it's true because it's only reports. It's not confirmed by Blizzard themselves. But it seems very unlikely that they aren't doing it because they needed something.
They've got to do something.
But yeah, it really isn't look good for them right now. This seems very much a situation of a company on its deathbed, to be quite.
Oh dear. So they're not the only one either. Like EA's continued to be EA, and they're paying the price for it. Ubisoft have released essentially the same game for the last 6 years now, over and over again. The big boys are all falling down, and I got to admit, it's somewhat satisfying to watch.
Yeah, it's because all of these people, these publishing houses, they represent a betrayal of their customers now. Like when people think about Activision and EA and so forth, they don't think about a publishing house that produces these games. They think about being screwed over.
Yes.
That's what their names are synonymous with now. It's about being screwed over.
The uncaring corporate Shoggoth. So yeah, I think the next year is going to be very interesting.
Yeah, it would not surprise me if Blizzard gets downsized into irrelevance and just absorbed into Activision proper.
Yep.
But it would. I don't know. It would say a certain amount about who they are playing to, because it would be good news to investors, but bad news for everyone else, because investors like consolidation.
Yes,
they would want Blizzard to stop being Blizzard and start being Activision, so that they can, so they won't need a CFO for each of them. They won't need a CTO for each of them. They won't need a CEO position for each of them. They can just combine all of those roles,
and that means
save
more
all
money.
that money. Yeah, that's what the investors are going to be excited for. To lose the Blizzard name is a PR catastrophe to the market. The market still attaches a certain amount of nostalgic value to the Blizzard name, whether wise or unwise is, outside the question, really. If Activision is seen to disappear Blizzard, much in the way a mobster would disappear someone inconvenient for them, that's just categorically bad PR.
Yes, it is.
And if they decide to just leap in and pander to the PR that is convenient for the investors, that will tell the gamers where where Activision's interests really lie.
Yeah.
It will confirm everything that people have suspected. So, yeah, I think that it's not unlikely, though, that they will start viciously downsizing Blizzard. It's just a question whether or not they try and keep a token studio to retain the name or not. Because if you recall, at the end of last year, I think we talked about it on the show, they paid staff to resign.
Yes, they did.
About 100 staff got culled from Blizzard. So and despite all of that culling and all of that financial tightening of the belt and cutbacks and costs and spending and so on, the chief financial officer still resigned.
Mm-hmm.
Makes you wonder, what do they know about the numbers that we don't?
Yep.
So yeah, it looks like Blizzard is the end. The barely animate corpse of Blizzard that we've been inspecting for the past few year or two or so. There's no juice left to keep that zombie shambling.
No. The Blizzard we grew up with and the Blizzard we loved is long dead.
Even the animated corpse.
Yeah, the shambling husk is on its last legs.
World of Warcraft has been a catastrophe for them. StarCraft is practically a... Hearthstone is dead in the... Overwatch is dying. Heroes of the Storm has been murdered in its sleep.
Diablo committed seppuku on stage.
Yeah, why? Why?
And
the only thing that people are excited from Blizzard is the remake of Warcraft 3.
Yes, which I'm still waiting to see how they're going to ruin it.
It's a game from like 15 years ago or something, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It's I believe it's actually older than 15 years ago now.
Oh, please don't.
I know. I feel ancient. Oh, well. I'm just waiting to see how they ruin it. It's gonna happen. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of how. So, yeah. Yeah, that's probably the end of Blizzard. I wouldn't be surprised if it's going to be the end of Activision, actually.
It could well be. And I just don't think that many people will grieve.
No, I don't think they will. All right. Now for something completely different. We found Cliffy B.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess his quitting the games industry in a huff was really... He had passions to chase, I guess.
He did. So it couldn't be much more of a wide swing. He huffed his way out of the game industry because people didn't like his artistic visions.
You mean people didn't like his transgender bathrooms being the main point of his...
People didn't like his FNAF bullshit. Whoops.
No.
Nah. So he's on Broadway.
I'm still a little bit incredulous. A little bit.
Oh no. Well, I suppose he can go where he'll be appreciated. The FNAF. So much FNAF. It's not really a big news article. It's just funny. So that's that one. I guess it just means we won't ever see Cliffy B in games ever again.
I'm perfectly fine with...
I am perfectly fine with that.
He might have been relevant once upon a time, but he has not been relevant very...
No.
Every attempt to find a bandwagon to jump on to make himself more relevant has imploded in catastrophic. So.
Yeah. Okay, let's move from one colossal gaming pillock to another. Randy Pitchford.
Yeah. Good old Randy Pitchford. Head of Gearbox.
Head of Gearbox and his own best fan.
Yes, very much so. And also stridently anti-gaming.
Yep, and as it turns out, possibly embezzling.
Yeah, certainly there's some questions about some things. Now, of course, Gearbox is denying it straight up, but
of course.
The lawsuit that has been taken out against them by their their legal, I think their legal advisory team head or something. I can't remember exactly what.
Something
But
like that.
yeah, that he's basically managed to assign himself a bonus of $12 million from Gearbox's coffers,
Yes.
which really should be in the development budget ideally. That's the accusation that has been leveled. But in addition to this accusation, it has dredged up a huge amount of dirty laundry along the way.
Oh my, yes. Like his extravagant parties.
Yes, extravagant parties where it is alleged that, I guess, people show their genitals to underage attendees for giggles,
I guess.
which is a crime.
But it's magic.
Yeah.
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 The
thing that has caught the most attention, probably because he actually went on a podcast to discuss it.
Yes. The
I'm
USB
not sure how
stick.
much we can talk about this sordid material, but basically, he went to a medieval times, which I understand is like a medieval themed dinner theatre place in,
Yes, that's exactly
in
what it is.
America.
It's actually one in Australia too.
He went to one of these and he left there by accident a USB thumb drive which contained a range of sensitive documents pertaining to Gearbox and to Gearbox's collaborator Sony.
Mm-hmm.
Not the best thing to be caught doing.
No.
But additionally on that thumb drive was also his prawn.
Yep, he left his prawn collection behind.
And just to make it extra juicy, it's a prawn of barely legal cam girl, apparently.
Yes. So
now this is an unbelievably seedy.
It's bad enough as it is, but it gets worse.
Well, it gets worse because of the excuses he tried to make for it. Really.
Yeah, but it's research.
Yeah, apparently it's because he likes to watch cam girl sites and he allegedly downloaded this clip because he was studying it to try and work out how the cam girl did a magic trick. Involving... Yeah. Okay, there's a limit to what I'm willing to talk about on the podcast. This is far over the boobies line.
This is just getting skeevy. Very skeevy.
Rest assured that it is an extremely skeevy matter, and you can look it up if you want the sort of details. The sort of details are not exactly relevant per se, so much to the extent that he's kind of gross and seems to think that people will believe that he is not gross if he makes an incredibly contrived excuse about a magic trick. I mean, yeah, he's into his magic tricks. I understand that fact because he's such a raging narcissist. He holds parties specifically for the purpose of showing off his magic.
Yes,
but just man, if he just kept silent or just admitted, I should have probably password protected prawn.
Yeah.
If he'd played it down rather than trying to play it off with an excuse, things probably would have gone away quicker.
It would have just been blown away as he's left his prawn behind.
This is a rich man peccadillo. He's only caught out doing this because he's a high profile figure. But no, it's about a magic trick.
It's about a magic trick.
Yeah,
I don't want to think
Definitely
about what kind of magic tricks you would find in there.
Yeah, apparently he really, really, really wanted to know how she did that weird thing she did. Yeah.
Brain repelling.
Yeah, so Cliffy B, always been a creeper, now slightly more of a creeper.
No, that's not Cliffy B. That's
not Cliffy B. Randy Pitchford. Well, Cliffy B's probably a creeper as well. I mean, he sounds like one. But yeah. Randy Pitchford has always been a bit of a creeper. He's always been unpleasant to the fans. and has always prioritized, his politics and his reputation above everything else. So I would be totally unsurprised if the seedy parts of this all turned out to be 110% true. I don't know for sure whether or not he's involved in criminal indecent exposure to children, because it's not impossible. Given he's a rich coastal elite. A lot of them are creepers. This is a reality of that particular culture.
The problem is, though, I think once you reach a certain amount of money, it's not an offence; it's an eccentricity.
Well, and the thing is that you can make the law go away with money, and
yes, you can,
and even more so if you have the right political views.
Oh yes,
but so as far as the core of the accusation goes, now the guy bringing this lawsuit is a former employee at Gearbox, and a former friend of Randy Pitchford, who has a lot of acrimony down. It very, very much sounds like it didn't end on a very good note. And he is actually the subject of a lawsuit from Gearbox for an alleged $300,000 loan he took out and then never, apparently, which is also a lawsuit. So, with the way things stand, Gearbox is claiming that, this is just because he's got this lawsuit to deal with. He's angry and wants revenge. That doesn't quite add up to me all the way. I think that it's true.
Yeah,
that he's lashing out because he's being lashed out at. But I think that the odds favor that both of them are telling some portion of the truth.
Yes. The truth lies somewhere between both stories.
Yeah, because I don't think that he would come up with an elaborate story about Randy Pitchford's sexual peccadillos if all he was interested in was creating and obfuscating lawsuit.
Yes.
So I really do. I really do think that there's some skullduggery has gone on here, but it's just hard to say what skullduggery, because there are.
Yeah. What else have we got? Minor note for Beyond Good and Evil 2, which honestly doesn't come as any surprise. It's always online.
Yeah. Now, the thing that gets me about this is Beyond Good and Evil being always online. Let's say a new game being always online does not surprise me in the slightest.
No.
And even this one being always online doesn't surprise me. It's more that they do know who they're making this game for, right? They're making this game for Beyond Good and Evil fans.
Mm-hmm.
And presumably what Beyond Good and Evil fans want is a new Beyond Good and Evil.
Yes.
But the product they're describing does not actually sound like.
It's got
the product they're describing sounds a lot more like an entirely novel game of their own devising. That doesn't have a huge amount to do with Beyond Good and Evil, other than it features characters.
Yes.
Totally.
Hey, remember that. Remember, here's Peach. Everyone likes Peach. Here's Jade. She's evil now for some reason.
Yeah, I think that this is not what people wanted when they said that they wanted a new Beyond.
Yes.
I think that this, in fact, has very little to do with it.
I honestly thought
I don't know.
When they first showed trailers that it was going to be some sort of high-tech Journey to the West parody.
What could possibly lead them to believe that people wanted something completely different from Beyond Good and Evil for the new Beyond Good and Evil? That's really bewildering to me.
Well, yeah, Beyond Good and Evil it had vehicle sections and it had competent platforming, as well as a very solid story running through it. I've seen plenty of vehicles. I haven't seen any platforming.
It's because it's an open world RPG.
Yeah.
An open world, always online multiplayer RPG. They are making Beyond Good and Fallout 76.
Ugh. Well, no, it's Ubisoft, so it's the generic grey-paced Assassin's Creed cry-far thing. I don't care. They're all become this amorphous bland mass. So, yeah, it's not the game people actually asked for. Who's surprised by that?
It's sort of a bit sad considering how long those particular fans have been waiting for this, and now they're getting something which, as far as anybody can tell, is basically unrelated in anything except characters. And I think that the actual timeline that people have been talking about for the plot also sounds like it is basically going to render people's affections for the characters and plot moot.
Yeah, it does.
So yeah, this seems like, you know, I didn't understand why it seemed necessary to have a what was it, a community council to determine what should be in the Command and Conquer remake. But if this is the way their logic operates, it's starting to come in a bit clearer now. But they straight up don't know what people want out of a remake. Do they want the remake to be a remake of the old game? Like, if they can't even understand that concept, then understanding something like the subtleties of what people have affection for in an old, much beloved franchise, no wonder that's beyond.
No. So they're just taking an old beloved franchise and just jamming it into the Ubisoft sandbox. Because that's pretty much all Ubisoft does these days.
Yeah.
All right, let's see. Speaking of completely tone deaf, there's a new Alien game coming out. The supposed Alien Isolation 2, which people were very much looking forward to, because Alien Isolation was good, unlike Colonial Marines, which was broken.
That shooty thing?
It is a shooty thing. But, yeah, here's that tone deaf.
Is it the one they did VR for, or... I'm trying to remember what game we're talking about here.
Yeah, the Alien franchise has never been one that's really captured my attention, to be honest. But
Randy Pitchford's Alien Colonial Marines, man.
It was supposedly the greatest game ever made. Oh, wait.
Possibly a good contender for the buggiest game ever made.
One bug destroyed the entire game.
It wasn't merely a bug, it was a typo.
It was a typo.
Just one typo destroyed the entire game.
So, yes. So, yeah, people were excited for Alien Isolation 2. But then companies have revealed themselves to be completely tone deaf again. It's not Alien Isolation 2, it's Alien Blackout. It's on the mobile.
You guys do own phones, right?
To borrow a line from BlizzCon, just how? Did they not watch BlizzCon? I'm guessing no.
Nobody watches BlizzCon.
Nobody watches BlizzCon. I'm not sure why, because it's hilarious and incredibly sad. So, I'm sorry, Alien fans. I'm really sorry. Let me see. So that's just a minor one. Let's bring ourselves full circle and then wrap this show up, I think. There's one more story from Activision Blizzard. They're being investigated for fraud.
Yep. Now, there's a lot I don't know about, but apparently it's enough. There's enough suspicion that this investigation is taking place with a class action lawsuit.
Yes.
There's some sort of trading fraud involving securities companies. Yeah. Because what they really need, right, is their investors to feel even more insecure than they already did.
So this is, I think, the investor reaction, I guess, to Bungie jumping ship.
Yeah.
So because this came as a direct result of that. There's not a whole lot really known at this point, and a lot of what is known is tied up in financial jargon. So, yeah, just one more log on that fire.
It's also important to remember that this isn't just Activision Blizzard. Like, EA is subject to the same type of chaos right. That things really went poorly for them where Battlefield was concerned, and on top of the mishandling of the House of Mouse's Star Wars property, they really have a lot to answer for right now, because everything they've done has been expensive commercial.
Yes, it has.
Yeah, it's not what is happening here to Blizz Activision is also somewhat similar to the type of chaos that's going on over at EA. So yeah, it's basically what we're looking at here is the AAA quarter of the gaming industry is on fire.
Yep.
It is burning down. And, Bethesda has screwed up pretty much everything that one could conceivably screw up with their Fallout 76, and their reaction is probably going to be to inadvisably rush something out the door that shouldn't be rushed out the door. And we've got this conga line of shame and failure from Blizzard Activision. We've got the get woke, go broke approach over at EA, where they came out and told gamers not to buy a game, so they didn't.
Yeah.
But
our customers are uneducated. Don't buy our game.
Every single one of these jokers is managing to screw up, and it's not beyond their control. It's all deliberate actions that are incredibly poor judgment, and in several cases politically motivated. This is what an industry in freefall looks like. They have become so staggeringly arrogant and self-confident in their approach to everything that they are heedlessly stepping on every rake in sight.
Yep. And all we can kind of do is sit back and watch the show. Yep.
And I suppose, I guess I'm fine with that, because stuff that I've played lately, all of it has been like by Bandai Namco, published by Xseed, made by Atlas, all of these companies which have stayed well away from this mess. So I don't care if Activision implodes and EA implodes, implodes. Those people have nothing for me and have done nothing for me but insult my intelligence again and again. So, yeah, good riddance to bad rubber.
Yeah.
If all of these people implode, maybe we'll be fortunate enough to go back to an era where people make games that they like, not just that they think that the metrics will work out well for the financials department.
Trying to remember the last game I actually bought from one of those 4 companies, being Activision, EA, Ubisoft, or Blizzard, I guess. No, I can't really think of it. It was a while ago, though. Maybe SimCity? Because just those 4 companies, they've done absolutely nothing to cater to what I want as a gamer. So why would I give them money?
I don't think they really understand. They certainly didn't. Maybe they're beginning to. That we don't need them.
No, we don't.
In fact, nobody needs them. The reality is that these big publishers exist for one purpose and one purpose alone, and that is to arrange the finance for developers. That's their role in the industry. It's what they do in the best case scenario, is arrange money and oversight of the use of that money for developers. And it's not a completely worthless role, but it has been deployed with a great deal of irresponsibility, and this is the result. Quite simply, the truth is that CD Projekt Red exists.
Yep.
And CD Projekt Red is proof positive that publishers are not necessary to make, a groundbreaking Game of the Year quality game. Their very existence is an indictment of the whole publishing edifice.
Yes.
So, yeah, they're going to have to cotton to the reality sooner or later that we don't need them. And if they're going to insult our intelligence, if they're not going to facilitate the production of good product and instead only pad their bottom line, well, then they'll just stop selling. It's as simple as that.
Mhm.
Because while individually gamers have demonstrated a shameful lack of coherent understanding about how to vote with your wallet, that is starting to shift very, very slowly. That giant is starting to wake up, realize.
Yes, it is.
Actually, we're starting to see things appear in these games which have nothing to do with games and everything to do with either political ideology or cynical cash grab.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, the gamers as a whole are well and truly sick of it. Like, people who make gaming as their central hobby have known about this for a while, but Joe Normie now is starting to cotton on.
Yeah, it's because their attempts to do PR moves have become but so incompetent at the same time.
They'd be hilarious
sort of
if they
hard,
weren't so damaging.
it's sort of hard to avoid noticing them slipping on a banana skin, and they are making a lot of these mistakes these days are being made not just in plain sight but directly to these people. Like the easiest example is the utterly tone deaf announcement. Like, there is literally no worse way to deploy that announcement than the one that they chose. That is like the number one worst version. The worst reality in which one can live is the one where you announce a project to the core fan base that spits in the face of the core fan base.
And you get
that
booed.
Builds up their hopes to the absolute maximum amount that they could build up their hopes, and then sends them all crashing down with a mocking sneer. This is the worst thing that they could have done, and they did it, and they don't understand what went.
Yeah.
This is an industry out of touch. And there's no future for an industry that.
Yep. So, yeah, death to the king. I'll just sit in my happy little corner with my occasionally released AAA really good games from, not the big three. Like, Monster Hunter World. I'll happily play that all day. And my indie games, because for the most part, they actually try and make a game that they want to play. And, yeah, I'm just going to watch the AAA market burn.
Yeah, and hopefully we'll eventually oscillate back round to, an industry where there are more studios making games for the.
Yeah,
we're not so concerned about making sure that their companies are directed by people who work in the payroll department, the financial department. Like, they're just interested in producing something that they are proud of. Because every creator is entitled to producing something that they are proud of, and then the market can judge what. I'm sure that all the people who are producing, the ultra woke stuff are also proud of the product they create because they think they're doing an important. But the market should be free to speak on.
Yes, they should.
And they should not have to face the indictment of the critical edifice and the publication edifice when they do speak.
Yes, they should. So, yeah. And there is, of course, the old statement that build it and they shall come. And this is where the gaming industry had its roots. Is people building games that they wanted to play, that they loved, and they had a real passion for. And the fans responded to it. They came and they happily gave them money. Unfortunately, those companies then kind of grew into the big three.
Because once upon a time, I was excited to see what Activision was bringing.
Yeah, EA was a mark of quality. Ubisoft
People
was
liked them.
Always grey-paced, okay, admittedly, but yeah, people responded. People liked what they made.
I still remember Activision as, Activision made Dark Reign. I loved Dark Reign.
Dark Reign was great. Dark Reign 2 was not.
I think they made it. But, yeah, it was, that time is gone. People associate those names only with cynicism. There's nothing good left. So, yeah, maybe it's time. Maybe they've reached the end of their lifespan. They're no use to us anymore.
It's time to slip off quietly into the void. Problem is, though, the way the market works is should these three fall, another bunch will come up and take their place.
Yep, eventually that will happen. It's just a cycle that's liable to continue indefinitely, more or less. As long as the market conditions that are extant continue, so will. However, we have had games market crashes before where the entire system had become too bloated for its own good.
Mm-hmm.
And we've also come out of that. We've come out and had, halcyon days of creativity and innovation that have come out of the aftermath of that dieback. But it's, it's like the comet hitting the Earth and killing off half the species and leaving room for the development of new species.
Yeah.
That's what we're looking at.
Well, after the crash in the 80s, there was a golden age.
Yeah, the way that Activision and EA and that do things it's not going to be around.
No. Oh, hiccups now. All right. We should probably start wrapping up.
Yeah. Bagel Goose is trying to throw me off.
Why are you playing with Bagel Goose?
Well, it's not that I'm playing with him, it's that he's playing with me.
You are his true
I didn't invite him or anything.
Nobody ever invites him. He just turns up.
Yeah. I don't appreciate him. I don't appreciate anything that he has to say about me or about the things I want to do, but he isn't interested in my opinion.
But he thinks you're so explosive. And he loves you. He wants to give you a big boomy hug.
He has a funny way of showing it.
Yes, he does. He shows his love with explosions.
I think that of all of the monsters that debuted in World, I think Bagel Goose is going to be people remember.
I think so, yeah. Like Anjanath has some staying power, but Basil Gaius, just everything about him is memorable.
Yeah, the sound, the explosions, the uninvited, unsolicited bombing runs,
the creeping dread when you hear his roar.
Possible moment, like I feel like what's the other green pickle fatty?
Pickle.
Like Pickle's a thug, but Bagel Goose is a troll.
Yes.
Like Pickle's only interested in feeding himself, but Bagel Goose wants you to suffer.
Yes. So yeah, Devil Joe, nobody begrudges Devil Joe what he does anymore because that's just what Devil Joe is. It's a giant troll pickle. But he will show up and he just wants to eat everything. That's his deal. Basil Gaius just wants to see the world burn. With his,
and he's willing to help.
Yes. He's going to show up. He's going to set off every air raid siren because that's just his voice. And he's going to blow everything up just for giggles. Now I want to play some Monster Hunter World. All right. Let's get out of here then.
Alrighty.
Closing comment of the week, sir. Go.
One of these days I'm going to start preparing comments because I really, really don't know what to say. I'm currently running after a Bagel Goose in an inversion of the usual formula.
This doesn't seem right.
No. I shouldn't have gone. I wish they would change that.
Yeah.
I don't like that you always end up... Like, the number of hunts that I complete when I'm just doing exploration are very low simply because almost all of them end up escaping from me. Because I'm an incredibly mediocre Monster Hunter player. I can't close it.
Yeah.
So, always end up running. I wish it...
Closing comment from me. I'm going to break out the marshmallows because the industry is burning.
Couldn't happen to be to a nicer bunch of cynical money grubbers.
Yep. It was always going to happen, and whether or not this is the actual games crash or not, it's certainly giving a good attempt at it. All right. So that's us for the week. And, well, actually, first show of the year. Hopefully next week we will be back with some more Aristil.
Yeah.
Yeah, he doesn't seem to be particularly happy with what his lot at the moment. Without going into details, he's really unhappy. So that's us. Thank you for listening, everyone. Don't forget to join our Discord by going to a post on vtwproductions.com or at the bottom of a YouTube video and clicking the link. We will catch you guys next time. Good night.